Hey everybody. So today I'm going to recreate the cake that I made last weekend. And for those of you who didn't see the post about it, it's from this wonderful book called the Harry's Bar Cookbook. It's a torta marangata classica. So it's basically a cake that I'm going to put a pastry cream, whipped cream filling in between, and then it gets covered with meringue and baked just for a few minutes to make it brown. So it's not difficult at all, but it does have a few steps to it. And so for the cake part of it, I think they have a recipe in there, but I'm just going to use my standard Genoise cake mix or cake. It's a scratch cake that I've been making forever and ever and ever. And so I want to show you because we did a little talking about generational cooking the other day. So when I was young and I set out in the world, my mom made this cookbook for me. It used to be a binder. It is no longer a binder. And I keep it in a Ziploc bag because most of the pages are falling apart and coming apart. And so, I don't want to lose anything, but I still use many, many, many of these recipes. So I don't want to risk not having them. Funny story though, Paris, my middle daughter, has now said, Mother, I would like you to do one of those for me. And I made her a cookbook a couple of years. I had it printed and, expensively printed from a professional print place, but it wasn't like a fancy binding. And she loves it, but she wants a better one. And she said, and I want you to handwrite all the recipes. Now, most of you don't know the history between Paris and I. We butt heads a lot. And so for her to say something like that to me just warms my heart. And I said, okay. And I said, I'll copy it and give you a copy, Riley, to my older daughter. And she goes, well, I want handwritten too. And I'm like, all right, I will handwrite every recipe twice and put them in a book. So this is, they want their version of this, and this is generational cooking. So here is my recipe for the Genoise, which is just a basic French sponge cake. And it's not from my mom, actually, it's from the first professional kitchen I ever worked in, a lady named Lynn, who is really super talented, had a drinking problem, but unfortunately that happens. But this is the cake that she taught me to make. And what I'm going to do, it's a 3-layer cake. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it in a 10-inch cake pan. I'm going to have batter left over, and that's going to annoy me because I'll have to make another small cake again, which I did last week too. But anyways, I'll make one big cake, and then I will slice the layers myself to get the 3 layers. So that's fine. But the technique with this cake is fairly particular, but it's not complicated. I need a great big bowl. So the first thing you do, and I mean, I've seen different versions of this, and I know that the way I was taught at school to do this cake was much more complicated than the way I'm going to do it. But the way I do it makes that cake exactly the way it's supposed to be, and it turns out beautifully every time. So the first thing we need is 8 whole eggs, which I'm going to put in the bowl of KitchenAid. It involves beating eggs and sugar to the ribbon stage, and it's not the way like I said, the way I've done this is not complicated, and it's always worked beautifully. So I highly recommend trying this cake because it's super simple. And now I've got an eggshell in there. Got it out first try. It's not complicated. The ingredients are very, very simple. Pretty much things I always have on hand. I stock a lot of eggs because it's a running joke in our family that I never want to run out of eggs. So 8 eggs. I have this great little scale. I'm not going to tell you where I got it because I don't endorse things. But this great little scale, I ordered it, and they brought it right to my door. It was like $15 or something, and I use it so much. So I put the bowl on. I do a tare, which is hit the T. That means it takes the weight of the bowl off. And I need 270 grams of sugar. Do, do, do. Overshot my mark a little bit. Undershot my mark a little bit. I mean, grams are so small, right? There we go. 270, more or less, on the button. So what you do is you put the eggs, or you put the beater in, start to stir it. Make sure my microphone's on. Start to stir it a bit. Pour the sugar in, and just put it on bust. And I'll put a little bit of vanilla in a few minutes. But basically, what we're going to do is we are going to beat this for almost 10 minutes. And if you can see the bowl, you can't see the eggs really all that well, but by the time I'm finished, it will have increased the volume so that it's almost full. So I'm going to do it in this pan. The bottom's a little loose in this, so I'm going to have to put it in on a cookie sheet because it might leak out a little bit and then things get smoky, which is never fun. I'm going to line it with parchment paper because it just makes it a whole lot easier to get it out safe and clean. The first thing I'm going to do is cut a strip that I can put around here. And obviously I'll need 2 of them, which is fine. Fine. What I'll do is I could use the butcher block as a guide, couldn't I? For the lines. And you know what? I have this microphone on. I probably don't even have to raise my voice, so I apologize if it's really loud, the way I'm talking. Okay, so to make the circle, and it doesn't have to be perfect, right? If there's a little bit of the pan exposed, it's still going to come off really nicely. It's just the idea is to have the majority of the pan covered so that this slides right off. So keep cutting it in triangles until you have a pretty thin triangle like this. And then I measure it with the center of the pan. And I can do it like this too, but it's not, I could. That looks like it would be a pretty good circle. I'm going to cut it. See what we get. It's a circle. It's too big, which I figured it might be, but that's fine. Because all I have to do is fold it and fold it and fold it again. And just trim a little bit off the top of this triangle. Probably going to be a little pointy on that side. I'm taking Italian lessons online, and it's doing it through music. And I know if you're watching these on a regular basis, I've told you this before, but I keep getting the Italian song stuck in my head. And I'm singing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Uno, due, tre, quattro, cinque, quattro, cinque. So if I start singing that, it may sound random, but there's actually a reason why I'm doing it. Okay, so These are perfect. It's just getting these little buggers to stay in. Might be complex because I use the side rather than the top for the second piece. So let's see if I can get this straightened out a bit. Quanto costa? Quanto costa? Wonder if I can. It's just this piece that's being difficult. Okay. Desperate times call for desperate measures. And there's by no means anything desperate about this. Quanto costa? Here we go. There we go. Okay, so we've got that right there, right to the bottom. Okay, I'm sorry, that was a little painful, me putting the parchment paper in the thing. That's fine. So, if you can see, let me come around and see if you can see what I can see. Yeah, you can see it, right? So the eggs have beaten up, and you can see them in the top of the bottle. So I'm going to put the vanilla in now. So I keep both real vanilla and fake vanilla in the cupboard. There's certain things that it doesn't matter so much with the flavor. Once you cook it and add different things, you won't notice it. So the artificial vanilla is fine. If I'm using artificial vanilla, I'm pretty heavy-handed with it. And I have the real vanilla and vanilla beans for the things that are important. So for the filling that I make the pastry cream, I will definitely be using vanilla bean because I think it looks so nice when it's got a little vanilla bean, right? Okay, so now I'm going to measure the flour. You will see from time to time in recipes that it calls for pastry flour. I'm not opposed to pastry flour. What I'm opposed to is stocking a bunch of different types of flour in my cupboard. So I use all-purpose flour for everything, and it works just fine. So we need 250, double check that, 250 grams of flour. And the important thing here is that we're going to be sifting it twice. So you want to be fairly precise with the flour. Too much flour, actually, you know what? I'm going to reduce the flour by 10 grams. So I'm only putting 240 grams of flour in because I'm not using pastry flour. So you can do that. You can reduce the amount of flour you use a little bit to offset it. So when I say twice sifted, I'm going to sift this flour into this bowl, and then I will sift it as I add it to the cake, and you'll see that in a few minutes. Alrighty. So So for the process of making the batter, you need a big spatula like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to, when this is finished beating, which will be shortly, we're going to put the egg part in here, and then we're going to sift the flour a little bit at a time and fold it in gently. There's a way to do it and a process. Like I said, this takes a while, but it is not complicated. It's not difficult. Anyone can do it. You just have to remember that you have to honor the recipe. I think we're going to call this done. Let me just see how much time it has been. Oh yeah, geez Louise. Geez Louise. Okay, that's much better. Okay, so I'm gonna take all of this. Doesn't that look nice? Floofy eggs. And you need a big bowl for this because while we stir the flour in, we're also going to be incorporating air into it. And as you have noticed, I'm sure, there's no baking powder or anything in this recipe. It really is fueled by eggs and beating the eggs and now incorporating sugar or air into it. So we want to do just a little bit of flour at a time. So I'm using a half cup measure. I'm using less than a quarter of a cup at a time. Sprinkle it all over the surface. And you know what? I could have done a little bit less, and I will do a little bit less next time. This takes a few minutes. So what I'm doing, hopefully you can see this well, is I'm going around the outside of the bowl with the spatula, and then I'm folding it inwards. So this is one method of folding. This is sort of like the OG folding method. I saw something about that with Catherine O'Hara the other day because there was a Schitt's Creek skit where she was folding something. Anyways, so once that is folded in like that and you're going only around the edge, it seems like a long process. Guess what? It is. And you have to do it by hand. You cannot do it with the mixer. When I was at school, brash young things that we were, the chefs taught us how to do all of this by hand, except we were beating the eggs by hand as well. And somebody cheekily put their hand up and said, "Chef, in the real world, how are we going to know how to use appliances?" And, you know, valid question. But for something like this, we're not really using appliances as much because this has to be done by hand. And every once in a while, you want to go a little bit deeper and fold from the bottom because you will get a little bit of a buildup of flour in the middle, right? So I always say just once in a while, you go right through the middle once. This is all about being delicate and folding the air into the batter as you go. And if you rush it, you'll be able to tell because the eggs will deflate fairly quickly and you won't have the light fluffy batter. But when we do this, when we incorporate the eggs into it, or the air into it as we create it, then that's what's going to give this lift and make it a puff up in the oven. Now, interestingly enough, these cakes always come out of the oven flat on the top. And you might say, well, that's not good. That means your cake's fallen in. It does not. It is actually fantastic because when a cake comes out domed, aka Betty Crocker, then you've got to cut that off if you want to have a cake that's flat, right? So these ones just cut beautifully into layers. And my daughter's making this coconut cake that's our family favorite now. Got stuck in the rut. I found a really good coconut cake, and that's all anybody wants for birthday cakes anymore. So thank goodness Billy was outside the box and said, let's have that cake for my birthday. Because I'm tired of making the coconut cake. It's a really good coconut cake. It really is. And it's dense and coconut. Oh my goodness, it's so good. I just get tired of it. This one with this beautiful light sponge cake. And the whipped cream and the meringue is so light compared to that. It's like not even the same category. So I will confess that usually as I get on, I start wanting to put more flour in because I'm in a hurry and I'm, it's taking too long. But I promise you, it is worth it to take the time to do this properly. And you can see the eggs haven't really deflated at all in the bowl. If they did, that would be a bad thing. And the other thing too, by the way, is if you put too much flour in at once, the flour is going to go in lumps, whether you like it or not, no matter how gently you fold. If you put too much flour in, you will start to see lumps. Let's go through that once, through the middle. Ba, 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 da, 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 da. It's kind of like a relationship, because we can talk about relationships a little bit. It seems like a pain in the ass to maintain connection sometimes when you're busy and to do the little things that your partner likes. But we're talking long-term gain with these things, right? It keeps the air in the relationship. It keeps it puffed up on the highest level. And that's what we want to do. And sometimes, we get into a rut, and we get familiar, and we take our partners for granted. And if we can acknowledge that we're doing that and correct our course, then that's awesome. It's when we start doing it and we don't even realize it, or even worse, we're rationalizing it. And I hear so many people say that, I don't have time for my partner because I'm working on my business and this is something I'm doing for us. And they'll really appreciate it when I'm super successful and I have this amazing business. And that's great. Maybe that will be the case. I hope that that's the case. But what if you neglect your relationship so long that when you do hit success, there's no connection there? Who are you sharing it for? Sharing it with? Who have you done it for in that case? Because I know for me, my why is absolutely Billy, Riley, Paris, and JJ. Those Billy and my kids are the center of my universe. And if I don't take the time to enjoy it with them, then I'm missing out on life every single day. Life won't hold still for me. And the same goes true for people who say, no, I'm really busy and with my business. And so, I've got kids, I've got to take care of my kids. My partner's just going to have to wait. And that's fine. When the kids are older, we'll spend more time together. Also wrong. Because you set the example for your kids, and your kids very much benefit from a healthier, happier, more fulfilled parents. Parents, you know what I mean? From parents that are happier, healthier, more fulfilled. And you set an example, right? If your kids grow up seeing one of their parents in super uber work mode and nothing matters but work, and I can't attend any of your baseball games, it's such a cliche, but it's true, right? Then these kids grow up thinking that's the way it is for parenthood. And I tell you what, I don't think my kids will, because they were very much a priority. And I worked my butt off. When I was a single mom, let me tell you, I worked morning, noon, and night. But I arranged my schedule so that I worked myself to the bone when they're at their dad's house. And when they're with me, I had much more time. So we always had dinner together. We watched movies, we'd go on outings. Every year we went on a trip to France. That was my dad sponsoring us. It was so wonderful. So, my kids were always a priority, even when I was broke as a joke and needed as much money as I could get. One time I took a full-time job as the manager of their paddling club. So I was literally there on the dock with them every single day. And then at night I would go work at the airline. And on my days off, I would clean houses. So, I was busy. I was putting 60 or 70 hours a week in. And it wasn't healthy. I'm not going to lie about that. But it was focused towards the best way that I could support my kids, spend time with them, watch them grow, nurture them, teach them things, right? And I think that was the important thing to do. And, you know, I'm not a particularly religious person. Although somebody said recently, obviously I am spiritual, but I'm not religious. That's fine. And I think that women are capable of every single thing that a man is capable of, except physical strength, because they just are stronger than us in some ways. But everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. But I also sort of believe in traditional values, and not that I have anything against anyone at all that is super independent, but I think this is going to be a polarizing statement. This will probably come back to bite me. I'm happy to be the one cooking, and that's probably because I'm a chef. And if I wasn't a chef, I might be completely different about that. I'm happy to be the one cooking, and I'm happy to be the one at home with the kids. And that's also selfish on my part, right? Because I got to have that time. And I remember my ex-husband saying one time, the kid's dad, he said, well, why do you get to stay home with the kids? Maybe I'll stay home with the kids. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. And it never would have happened. I mean, he didn't have the patience to be a full-time dad. And everybody is absolutely different in this respect. So there are some dads that are fantastic stay-at-home dads. And maybe my traditional roles are more that one person is taking care of the house and one person is cooking, and the gender really doesn't matter. But I think these are good families for the kids to grow up in, if we can possibly do it. But at the same time, like I say, I think every family dynamic works. And I used to have people ask me all the time, oh, your kids are each 3 years apart. What do you think? Is that a good age span? Because, our kids are 5 years apart, or, my baby's 6 months old and my wife is pregnant again, or whatever. And everything works, right? If you are putting love into your family and paying attention to your kids and your partner, and working on creating a life that's amazing, then everything works. I believe that deep down inside, that we can make everything work. All right. Are you tired of hearing me drone on a little bit? I'm at the point where I'm usually starting to get bored with the cake. Do. Uno, dos, tres. No, 1, 2, 3. Uno, due, tre, quattro, cinque. Quattro, cinque. I know how to ask for the bathroom. Dove il bagno? Dove bagno? I don't know. I don't remember. I don't retain this stuff. Macchina is car. Bicicletta is bike. Boo, boo, boo. You know what? I'm going to have to speed this up a little bit. That's what I'll do. When I edit the video, I'll speed it up so that you guys are not like you're watching paint dry. If anybody did strands today, I'm working on the strands theme. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Figure that out in case you haven't done it yet. Mi chiamo Krista. My name is Krista. Ciao, arrivederci. Sì, no. Dispiace. Mi dispiace means I'm sorry. I'm Canadian. I need I'm sorry. I apologize all the time. Usually it's I'm sorry. My Italian or French is so terrible. Je m'excuse, je parle français un petit peu seulement. Excuse me, I speak French only a little bit. Un petit peu seulement. All right. We're getting there. Not much flour left. I'm still, even though, I might put it all in here, I'm still only putting enough that I'm doing a very light covering on the surface of the batter. So that's how you can tell how much you want to do in one go. So you fold, run it across, and then you run it again. You're folding it over. So just thought I would give you that reverse view so that you can see the other edge of the bowl. I should have done that earlier for you. I apologize. This is going to be a huge cake, and I'm going to have batter left over. Bum, 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 banana, na, 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 ooh, baby. Finally. And all you do, this one's for you. I don't remember what that commercial's for. Okay. We'll swipe through the middle to make sure there's no pockets of flour that need to be addressed. To me, this is worth it. The cake that comes out of this is just really a nice texture, a great flavor. So good. So good. So good. I think this is probably the strangest cake pan we've ever done. Okay, so I'm just putting a little bit in the pan now so that I can take the thingamajiggers off. Okay. So because I want to cut this cake into 3, and also because I don't have another 10-inch pan, I'm going to fill it quite full, and it is going to puff up, which is great. And put a little bit more in. And it's going to take longer to cook because of this, but we'll come back when it's cooked and check in. So what we want to do is we want to take it, go like that, just one tap or bang on the counter to get any air bubbles out. There we go. Put it on a cookie sheet. We're going to put it, I don't even know what temperature I'm supposed to cook it at. Cake. Ta-ta. Make the coffee filling, assemble the cake. Sponge cake, 265. Sponge cake, 265. Let's see what it says on the sponge cake. 350. So I've got it on 350. Separate the eggs. Yeah, see, they want you to separate the eggs. It's so much trouble. So the way I do it works beautifully. I'm going to put that in here in my handy dandy oven. I'm going to set the timer to 30 minutes because I know it's going to take at least 30 minutes. And I will see you back here in about 30 minutes, maybe 40. I'll look in the window and see what I see. But I'll talk to you about how you know the cake is done when I get closer to the cake. So I will see you back here in 30 or 40 minutes. So we're here doing the pastry cream portion of the cake. And I don't know if I explained this to you completely how this cake is made. The sponge cake is in the oven and it's not 6 more minutes. Let's take a look at the window and see oven light. Woo, it looks beautiful, but I wouldn't say it's done. Anyways, so the sponge cake, I'll cut that into 3 layers. Then I'm making a pastry cream now. When the pastry cream is cool and I'm ready to assemble the cake, which may not be probably till tomorrow, then I will take the pastry cream out and I'll fold it into stiffly whipped cream. So then you get a really nice, it's called, it's not creme chantilly. I forget. I know the name. It's, brain fart. Anyway, so it's a very, very nice mixture, and it's light. You get the flavor from the vanilla pastry cream, but the lightness from the whipping cream. So you put that in the layers, put the cake together, and then you use meringue to decorate it. as instead of icing. So it is in general a light cake. So we have the pastry cream and I'll get it going. So for the pastry cream, we need 1.5 cups of milk, 7 tablespoons of sugar, a piece of lemon zest. I just peeled a little lemon zest and threw it in there. 3 large egg yolks, 1/4 cup of flour, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So here's the way I do it. First of all, it calls for 3 egg yolks, but you need 4 for the meringue tomorrow. So I'm going to use 4 egg yolks. 4 egg yolks will not hurt it. It'll give it a little bit more richness and a little bit more color, which is, I always think that's kind of nice. Not going to do it yet. I'll tell you why in a second. So I'm going to use 4 eggs instead of 3 because I know I need 4 for tomorrow. So 1.5 cups of milk, 7 tablespoons of sugar, a piece of lemon zest. You could omit the lemon zest, by the way. 3 large egg yolks, 1/4 cup of flour, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I have vanilla bean in here because I love the way it looks when you have some vanilla bean in a pastry, like a pastry cream or an icing. I think it looks lovely, so I'm going to have a knife ready to do that. But the recipe says to put the sugar, and I didn't stir it, 3 tablespoons of the sugar goes in here to be heated up with the lemon zest, and I'm putting the vanilla bean in here. I have this pure vanilla extract. If you recall in the last video, I said I tend to use fake in the cake because you wouldn't know the difference. Well, something like this, a pastry cream, I will use a real extract because the flavor will be so much better. But that combined with the vanilla bean, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to have a lovely vanilla flavor. And I will also tell you that the cake recipe only calls for a cup of buttercream. And this is probably going to make close to 2 cups. You know what? Shit happens. There will be a little bit of extra pastry cream, and Billy and I might have pudding for dessert or something, because essentially that's what pastry cream is, right? It's pudding. So it says to bring it to a boil. That's almost the boiling state. And then, yep, it's boiling. Okay. Turn it off. So then it says to mix the egg yolks and the sugar together, mix it, beat it up really well, and then add the flour. I skip a step, kind of. I tend to, I mix the flour and the sugar together very well, and then I will just mix the egg yolks into that. I'm still singing the Italian song. Jeez Louise. Now, if you get even the littlest bit of egg yolk in your egg whites, you will not be able to get volume out of them. That's why I had to kind of pull a quick one there, and I put a little more egg white in the sugar bowl than I would like to, but it's better than having a little bit of yolk in my egg whites. Every once in a while I'm doing this, separating the eggs for meringue and you know, a pie or something. And I put the yolk in the wrong bowl, right? Instead of, I put the white here and the yolk there. And you know, when you do that, you ruin the whole thing. You have to start over again. It's so frustrating. It's like when you double a recipe, if you don't write it down, or at least me, maybe you guys are different, but you know, I might double some ingredients, and some ingredients I might just forget to double. There's some things that are catastrophic if that happens, and there's some that are not. Okay, so there's my 4 whites. That's for tomorrow. Then I have my egg yolks here with my flour sugar mixture. Now, when you're mixing, if you choose to do the egg yolks first, or the eggs and flour first, please don't do it in advance, because the problem is, it sounds pretty weird, but the sugar will cook egg yolks. So if you stir sugar into egg yolks and then leave it on the counter for 10 minutes, you're going to come back, you'll find the little hard lumps of egg yolk. and that's because the sugar actually cooks it. So you really only want to do this at the last minute when you're ready to put it in the milk. There we go. That looks good. It's mixed. It's light in color. Now, what I'm going to do is it says discard. Woo! Is this exciting? I happen to be doing this, and nothing that can sit for a moment. The flour makes a difference too. Oh, I know there's another piece of. Oh, I feel it. Okay, I'm coming. Okay, so it's golden on the top, and I'm just going to go in. You don't want to give a big waft. Shoot. I do this all the time. I turn up the oven rather than turn the timer on. You don't want a big waft of cold air in there because that can make the cake collapse. So I just gingerly went in. I didn't think it would be enough. It looks good, but when I touch it, you can still tell it's really soft underneath. It doesn't feel firm. So that's my pre-check when it looks warm on the top, or when it looks brown on the top. So we'll put a little bit of the milk in here to temper the egg yolks. And you know, I'm the there's comfort in a big bowl person. Didn't choose a big bowl, did I? It's fine though. I was just saying to Billy, who is back from his boys' outing, this would also be really good if you made it maple flavored, right? You use like real maple sugar for the sweetening part of it, maybe a little maple flavor. The other thing you can also do that I think would be good would be to use a really like dark demerara sugar and make it like a butterscotch filling. Oh, it'd be so good. Okay, so I'm going to let that cook for a minute, but I don't want to let it cook too long because I need to keep stirring it. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to clean out these vanilla beans, one of them, because I think I've already hijacked the other one anyways, and it was just reused. But I've got that nice little, it doesn't even take much, but that little bit of vanilla bean in here, and then we'll get those really nice flecks. And just in that time, I should have been stirring it, but I don't think I have any lumps or burning. When you're doing this, please don't be Krista, because I'm sometimes a little bit impatient, and I keep the temperature higher than it needs to be, and that's not the best way to do it. In case anyone's wondering, when I was at school, I was taught that creme anglaise, which is basically just custard sauce, always gets done stirred with a wooden spoon, and pastry cream is always with a whisk so that it doesn't get lumpy. I use a whisk for both, but when I'm making creme anglaise, I'm gentle with the whisk because then I don't have to worry about it getting foamy. So this is getting really nice and thick now. I've got the temperature right down, and I'm even going to turn that to 1 because I just don't think it's needed at that high temperature. And let's see what the cookbook says. 3 to 4 minutes. Continue to cook over low heat, 3 to 4 minutes, stirring frequently. Stir in the vanilla. So you can tell this is really thick, and it's going to be, I think this is thick enough, but I'm just going to cook it a titch more. Remember what I said, pure vanilla I use more sparingly. I got a cut in my thumb. I just got alcohol in my thumb. Hurts. And the extra egg yolk will make this a little bit thicker too, which is absolutely fine. But part of the reason you want to make sure this is cooked is because you will taste the flour if you don't cook the flour sufficiently. Take that off the burner a bit. Sorry. I think this is really, to be honest, this is done. I think it's good, but I'm just going to put just a squinch more vanilla Vanilla. Try not to get in my boo-boo again. So I put probably 1/4 teaspoon there, and first time, I just added another 1/2 teaspoon. There we go. Okay, so this pastry cream is done. It looks fabulous. Need a bowl. And put it in this guy. So remember I said I'm going to assemble this tomorrow probably. Nice and thick. Not scorched on the bottom, that's always a good sign. Mrs. Impatient. Sometimes I scorch the bottom of a coconut cream pie filling, and then I tell myself it's just toasted coconut. It's not because I burnt it a little bit. It's usually only just brown, right? Okie dokie, Smokies. So there we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let that cool for just, a few minutes to get the bulk of the heat off. We don't want it to form a skin on the top. So what I will do is I'll take a piece of saran wrap and just push it right in on top so that it's touching the pudding the whole way around, the pastry cream. So it's touching the pastry cream the whole way around with no air, and then you don't have to worry about it. If you put it on too soon, you risk having condensation go in and make it a little bit watery. So we're just going to cool this probably for 10 or 15 minutes, and it'll be fine. And then the cake, le gâteau, c'est bien ça. I'm going to test it with a bamboo skewer. It's my first choice of things to check it with. You can also check it with I was going to say a toothpick, but it's just toothpicks sometimes don't go far enough. But what you want to do is you want to gently put it into the center of the cake most of the way down and take it out. And if there's any sort of batter left on the skewer, then it's not quite done. If it comes out clean, or if there's just like some cake crumbs on it, then it's cooked. So that's how you can tell. And you can tell fairly well from the touch test, but I've been burnt enough times from the touch test, not for a long time, but burnt enough times that touch test gives me an initial idea, and this will be the final answer. So that's all I need this for. I'm going to move this out of the way so I can bring the cake over here. We can take a look at it when it's done. Give my pastry cream a whisk. I don't want a skin to form. Now see, I swear, I guess I didn't set the timer, so who knows? Let me do a touch test again. No, I don't think that's done. So I'm going to, oh shoot. I'm going to turn it off and we'll check in when I take it out. Okay, so I took the cake out, and like I said, it's a big cake. And I just realized I'm supposed to make 4 layers, not 3. So I don't know if I'll get 4 layers out of this. Sometimes it's a bit of a feat to do that. So you can see I poked a hole just because I wanted you to see it, but make sure it's before I take it out. So I gently stick the skewer in, and you can see there's some crumbs, but there's no goopy cake on it. So this is in fact cooked. So I'm just going to leave it. I'm not going to do anything with it for a few minutes until it has a chance to cool down a little bit. Oh shoot, forgot to put my other little cake in. So that's it for now. I'll see you tomorrow. Hi, here I am. We are going to assemble a cake. So what I have is the pastry cream. Remember, we made that yesterday, which is here. I took the pastry cream and I put the plastic wrap, I pushed it down into the top, so that way we can be sure that no skin forms on the top. So that's cooled and ready to go. I'm going to whip cream and fold it into that. The cake, cutting a cake into 4 is not easy. And I was not thinking about how I did it last week because I did a 9-inch and I have more 9-inch options than I do 10-inch. So it's not perfectly cut, but you'll see when I assemble it, I got to work around for this. So let's start by whipping the cream. It's supposed to be 1.5 cups of whipping cream. I'm using a full 2 cups, and the reason I'm doing that is because I have a little baby one, so I want to make that one delicious too. I want to decorate that one too. So we'll start with that. Then we're going to take the cake one layer at a time. I want to put it on this nice pedestal dish that was my mom's, but I'm really afraid that if I try to slide it from that onto this, that it'll be a disaster. And I don't know about putting this in the oven for when I want to cook the meringue. So I'm going to do it on this, and it's just going to have to be what it is. So this, you know, if I just use this from time to time, I wouldn't make as much mess. Woo! It splatters a lot when you've got a full bowl of whipping cream. So the whipping cream we're beating to very stiff. You know, there's that fine line between stiffly beaten cream and butter. So obviously we are going for the stiffly beaten cream and not the butter. It'll start to separate if you go too far, and if you catch it, then it's not the end of the world, but it's preferable to just have it done right the first time. So this is looking pretty good. Let's lift it up and see. So I would say that's pretty stiff. So that is fine like that. I'm gonna have to do a little washy in between, because I'll be honest with you, I used to have 2 KitchenAid bowls and I've lost one. How I can lose a bowl for KitchenAid is beyond my knowledge. So hopefully you can see this. I got the bowl. I got the pastry cream. Now, the recipe makes 2 cups. Like for the pastry cream, the requirement for the cake is 1 cup. But as I said, I've increased the whipping cream a little bit. So I'm going to use about 3/4 of this. And this is one of those things that, you know, it's fairly flexible. If you use a little extra pastry cream or a little less pastry cream, it's not going to greatly alter the cake. So the first thing I do is I'm going to take some of this whipping cream. Usually you take about 1/3 of it, and you somewhat aggressively mix it into the pastry cream. And what this does is it deflates the whipped cream a little bit, but it lightens up the pastry cream, if that makes sense. And then it becomes easier to fold the rest of the cream in. So I just slightly aggressively mix that in. There you can see it's lighter. It was really nice and thick, which is great. That's what we want. And this makes such a lovely filling for a cake. In French, this is called crème légère, which is light, specifically translated means light cream. But what it really is it's just this combination of half or part pastry cream, part whipped cream. And the whipped cream is airy but heavy because it's because it's full fat cream, and the pastry cream is thick but lighter because you only use milk for it. So it's an interesting, you're lightening up. The two ingredients that we're using are lightening each other up, I guess you would say. So all right, that looks good. And we can see the vanilla bean looks great. I'm going to taste this just because I can't resist. Awesome. I've got my two little cakes here. Push this out of the way for the moment. I don't think that's the right tool for that, I'll be honest with you. This one I think actually might work out all right. I've got diamonds are a girl's best friend in my brain today. So the way they call for you to do this is to spread it out, but not all the way to the edge. Leave about an inch on the edge. The reason you're doing that is because the weight of the cake will push the cream to the edges, but you don't want it to poke out through the meringue. That, of course, in the little one, I've broken all the rules, but then that's just the way I roll. It's rule breaking. There we go. A little bit more here. You know what? I don't even have to spread that. I'll just put that one on top like that. It's coming out the bottom because I put too much on. So this is just the filling for this cake, right? It's not going on the top or anything like that. So if you have 4 layers, which we sort of do, and you'll see what I mean by sort of in a minute, then you need 3 layers of the cream. Okay, so there's that. Now this layer, not this one, this one. So you can see, I mean, it looks terrible, but I'm going to use it anyways because I'm stubborn. I'm not going to use that. That's kind of goopy. It might have been slightly undercooked too. But we can make this work. My fear is that this is going to look a little bit caved in the middle. But since we're using meringue as the icing, I think that meringue will help us forgive a multitude of sins. And we're going to flip this like this. There we go. So there's our layers. It's really 3 layers, but around the edge it's a little bit more. It's not perfect, but that's just the way it rolls sometimes. There's a little bit left over, so I made more and I didn't really need to, but I have a small cake and a big cake. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause you for a sec while I wash the bowl for the KitchenAid, and then we will do the meringue and we'll be on to the next trick. Okay, so I have the bowl washed. What we have to remember is that if you're doing anything with meringue, if you want volume, and of course the whole idea of creating the meringue is for the volume, then you really have to be very careful that there's no fat in the bowl. So that's why if you get a little bit of egg yolk, then you've got to discard it and start over again. If there's any whipping cream left in this bowl, you would not get the volume you need. So, you know what, I forgot to get the icing sugar out, or the sugar. That's okay. So I've got my egg yolks. I've got 4 egg yolks and sugar. Do do boom 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 do. Okay, so let's put this sugar in a bowl to make it easier. not, or not, or not, or not, or not. It's fine. I don't need to put it in a bowl. I don't have any clean little bowls. I do, but it's in the dishwasher. Okay, so we've got the egg yolks. We're going to put a cup of sugar, but I increased it a bit, so I'm putting a little more sugar. But it's 4 egg yolks, 1 cup of sugar, and the juice of half a lemon. So what we will do is we'll start to beat it a little bit. Beat them until they're frothy. We're going to add the lemon juice and then gradually add the sugar. And then that's going to be how we decorate it. We've got the oven is set to 500. So the cake is going to go in the oven on the plate, and it only takes 2 or 3 minutes, so you'll be able to see it looks great when it comes out. So let's go get started. I'm just squeezing the lemon into a bowl. That way I get to make sure I haven't got any lemon seeds. Put that in. So the idea is to beat the egg whites and have them not too dry, but lots of volume. But the sugar should be dissolved. So that's why you add it gradually and let it beat for quite a while. Not quite as gradual as when we made the cake yesterday and how we added the flour, but gradual nonetheless. So my container is not quite big enough to maneuver my 1 cup measurer. And if you add the sugar too late, it won't dissolve when you're beating the eggs, and then you'll have a granular sort of texture when you taste it, which is fine, but it's preferred if you can beat them and have it dissolve. And the sugar, as you can see, will start to give it a really great volume, and they'll start to get really shiny. Alrighty. So we're just going to let that beat for a minute or two. Usually by this time what we are actually doing is we are working on dissolving the sugar the rest of the way, making sure it's really got the maximum volume. By now it has all the volume it's going to get, so we're really just making that chemical reaction of the sugar and the egg whites, turning it into that shiny, glossy, very smooth, very sturdy meringue mixture. And you absolutely can beat meringues too long, but normally that's when you're not adding much sugar. When you're adding as much sugar as you have here, it's not going to change a whole lot if you beat it for a long time, but you don't want to beat it any more than necessary. If you don't have sugar in it, or you're just using maybe a couple tablespoons of sugar, when you're doing it to fold them into something else, if you go too long, it will be almost dry and it'll like break apart instead of being stiff beats. So you don't want that. So I'm just going to check it and see. The sugar is mostly dissolved. I'm just going to give it a second or two longer. All right, now, just as a matter of interest, the recipe suggests sprinkling a little bit of sugar on it before you put it in the oven. I often forget that, so if I forget it, I've told you at least. All right. This is such a nice cake. It's light and really delicious. And some people might say it's not very exciting, but if you've been watching me for any amount of time, you know that I really deeply believe in simple flavors standing on their own and not always having to be smacked in the face with something strong. And the subtlety of a really good vanilla bean is beautiful when it comes to things like this. And the one I did last weekend that was the coffee cream in the middle, it was also really nice. I'm not going to say it wasn't for a second. It's off center of the plate. Okay. All right. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just tap the spatula on it and get that little windswept look. Okay, let's do the big one now. And when you do this, there's plenty of meringue to cover the cake. So I really encourage you to use all of it and give it a really nice meringue coating. And one of you in the group has requested baked Alaska, which will be a lot of fun to make. And that's sort of a similar thing, except it's ice cream. But you put a almost like a protective shell of meringue and bake it, and then it's the cream in the middle, the ice cream in the middle. Pretty cool recipe. Kind of like deep fried ice cream, which is trendy if you've ever been to maybe a food truck somewhere different. They'll do the deep fried ice cream. And I'm a fan. I like any kind of ice cream, I'm not going to lie, but I'm just going to use a spatula to get that out. But deep fried ice cream is kind of cool. Warm on the outside, crispy, and then ice cream in the middle with a little bit of raspberry coulis or something like that is really great. So I put it around the sides first in a nice thick coating. Then I bring it right up to the top. So all I'm doing is connecting the top bit of meringue with the side bits. And really, the more generous you are on the sides when you're doing this, the easier it makes it to bring it right up to the top. So we've got some left. Just going to do an extra little dose along the sides a bit here and there. I'm going to spread this in a second. You'll see where I'm going with this. Put a little on the top. Never waste a bit. Okay. Meringue is so easy to work with as a couverture for a cake because it really does stick. There's no, icing sometimes. The more you spread it, the more you get little bare spots because it'll move it from one place to the other. But the meringue really does kind of stick. So let's make this windswept. And the one thing I will do before I put it in the oven to bake is I'm going to wipe the plate down, because if you put it in the oven and bake it, even for these couple minutes, the chances of the meringue really hardening on the plate are good, and then it'll be super hard to get off to make it look nice. There we go. Look at that. What do you think? It's windswept, and I know the plate looks windswept too. So I'm just using a damp cloth, and I'm just slowly running it along the side of the plate with just like this with my finger. Like I said, I could transfer it. I would just be afraid of it going completely sideways. Diamonds are a girl's best friend. The rule for cleaning plates with a cloth, as I found out in my final exam, licking it is not considered appropriate. They didn't give me a really hard time and reduce my grade significantly, but they did mention it. But the rule is warm plate, cold cloth, cold plate, warm cloth. There we go. So that looks pretty good, don't you think? I'll put that in the oven. And this little guy, this little heart of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. I'm gonna put it on for 2 minutes and then I'm going to turn it with a cloth so I don't burn my hand. But it's important because even if I have the fan assisted oven, the convection oven, it still will cook a little bit imperfectly. So if you want it browned all the way around, the basic domestic ovens are not great for it. They're fine, but they're not perfect. And I just like to give it a little spin partway through. And because the temperature is 500, it really doesn't take long to brown it. And the little one might not even need a turn at all. I made some balsamic glaze to put on bruschetta today. If you're ever wondering how to make balsamic glaze, it's pretty easy. You just put balsamic vinegar in a pot and reduce it until it's syrupy. And if you go too far and make it too syrupy, you can add a little water, bring it back. Okay. So I'm excited about this cake. I think it'll be nice. Billy and I really like this cake, so it's a nice birthday cake for him. And it should be a fun evening tonight. I made a big lasagna yesterday, like a big pan. And whew, I love lots of layers in my lasagna, so it should be really good. Which reminds me, I gotta make sure I put that in the oven early, or else it's not going to be ready on time. I think what I'll do is I'll probably put it in at 325, cook it as a low temperature for maybe 2 hours, and tent some foil on the top if the mozzarella starts to get too dark. Side tangent for the rest of the meal. Anybody has any questions, is there something you'd like to see, please by all means give me a DM or a message or whatever. And okay, so oh, that looks beautiful. Yeah, it's just a little darker on the back. Timer. I'm just going to give it 1 more minute because I'm afraid of going too far. I don't want to break the dishes. Very many reasons why. And if you use a tea towel to pick things up, you run the risk of burning yourself. I've done it a lot, so I'm just sort of accustomed to doing it. But the thing is that you got to be really careful of is if your tea towel is damp, the water just conducts the heat and you'll burn your finger like that. So if you are like me and you're using a tea towel to take things out of the oven, just make sure that it's not a damp tea towel, because I've done that. And my daughter did that yesterday. Actually, I got to make a post about this. She made hot cross buns yesterday, and she went to grab something out of the oven with a tea towel and burnt her finger a little bit. Actually, and you know what? Thank God they're not in the group. Wrong child. My daughter Riley did it making focaccia a couple days ago. It's mom, dial in mom cooking. I've been helping them over FaceTime. Okay, here we go. Look at that. What do you think of that? Isn't that gorgeous? That is such a beautiful cake. And the little mini cake is nice. I think it's perfect. I don't know what I'm going to do with the little mini cake. If anybody wants to send me a message, I'll mail it to you. Imagine, wouldn't that be funny? But yeah, isn't that beautiful? The little windswept parts turned sort of a darker brown, and I just think it's gorgeous. So I'll let this cool a little bit, and more importantly, let the plates cool. Then I'm going to stick it. Oh, see, didn't I tell you I was going to forget the sugar on the top? I forgot the sugar. I could put the sugar on now. I don't know if the sugar would add anything to it now. Maybe just make it look pretty. Yeah, I told you I was going to forget to do it. So, okay, this is it. When these plates are cooling, I'm going to put it in the fridge. It'll keep in the fridge for a couple days. It will not be as good the second day. So do this the day you want it, as late in the day as you can. But as you can see, the assembling part is not that difficult. And then keep it in the fridge until you're ready to serve it. And that will help the center to firm up and everything. And it'll be chef's kiss perfect. So thanks for being here. I hope you enjoyed the making of the vanilla meringue cake. Have a great weekend.